A Venezuelan warship didn't just escort the cartel. PO-15 took on nearly 2,000 kilograms of cocaine from a crippled smuggler and rejoined the convoy like it was routine. That handoff turned a patrol ship into a covert transporter under state authority. In this video, we map how that single transfer links to a lethal batch aimed at U.S. streets, why Washington answered with a formal note to Venezuela and 31 sealed cases, and how forensic dossiers are being used to surround the network with facts, not missiles. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. If a warship loads cartel cargo in open water, what counts as a smuggler now? An MQ-9 Reaper held station roughly 120 nautical miles offshore, wide of the shipping lanes, high enough to stay out of earshot and low enough for a clean view through haze. Its sensor operators watched 4 fast boats push north. Low to the water, decks stacked with plastic-wrapped bales strapped in grids. Trailing them on a rear diagonal were 2 Venezuelan naval patrol ships, PO-13 and PO-15, offset to either quarter like a moving bracket. The spacing stayed tight. No chatter that sounded like a chase, no warning flares, just 2 warships pacing civilian traffickers as if they were shepherding a convoy. That set up the dilemma. The patrol ships ran with exposed gun turrets, crews at stations, and their surface search radar painting a wide arc. The smugglers kept their speed steady, engines droning, wakes clean. Any direct move to interdict those fast boats now meant entering the orbit of armed state vessels. Push too close and you risk a flag-to-flag confrontation instead of a standard boarding. Back off and the convoy keeps its schedule. The rules of engagement did not leave room for improvisation without tripping into a diplomatic mess. The choreography made the intent obvious. PO-13 held the outer lane, keeping a lateral buffer that blocked approach from the open sea. PO-15 set inside, a half-mile astern and offset, using its hull to cover the convoy's most vulnerable side. The smugglers kept an even interval, each boat following the next at a fixed distance to avoid wake interference, tight enough for mutual aid, loose enough to avoid collision in a hard turn. When the formation pivoted, the escorts moved first, swinging like gate arms to keep the screen between the convoy and any threat vector. It looked like a naval drill taught for anti-piracy work, except the ships weren't defending a tanker. They were defending traffickers. That pattern lines up with known anti-piracy screens because the logic is the same. Put steel between the protected asset and the threat. Use radar to extend the perimeter, and keep a reaction vessel positioned to sprint. Warships use rear diagonal screens to limit approaches on the stern quarter, where small boats tend to attack, and to create overlapping fields of view for sensors and weapons. Copy that geometry over civilian boats hauling contraband and you don't get coincidence. You get calculated protection. Midway through the run, one smuggler trailed smoke and dropped speed. PO-15 peeled out of the bracket, swung toward the faltering boat and matched drift. Sailors in uniform moved to the rail, lines went across, and bales came up in a steady chain. Nearly 2,000 kilograms transferred with the pace of a routine boarding drill. No distress calls, no scramble. A clean lift and load onto a state hull, then PO-15 eased back and slotted into its old lane, now heavier and still guarding the column. That moment changed the vessel's legal posture. An escort screens and shadows. A transporter carries. When a state ship accepts contraband aboard, it crosses from passive protection into active carriage under color of authority. It becomes the vessel of transport, not a bystander with guns. Intelligence teams assess the cargo at around $200 million, earmarked for an offshore handoff before any attempt at U.S. entry. The likely rendezvous would be a low-profile go-fast or a fishing mothership waiting beyond standard patrol arcs, timed for a moonless window when sea clutter masks wakes and helicopter launches drop off after midnight. Tight radio discipline and short-range bursts would cue the link-up, with the convoy arriving on a set fuel plan and slip times to avoid AIS-tagged traffic. So how did the Coast Guard drone capture the whole thing? The Reaper kept a standoff altitude, running persistent electro-optical and infrared tracking while banking wide circles to maintain angle on targets and avoid alerting the convoy. Time on station mattered more than speed. That patience let the crew film the salvage, the lift, and the reformation, while their radar overlays logged synchronized returns from PO-13 and PO-15 for later analysis. The camera caught a handoff at sea. On land, investigators traced a price list that reads like a naval rate card. What does a mid-ocean handoff have to do with a 300% overdose surge in Miami a year later? Operation Neptuno started as a quiet lift into the network behind those patrol ships. Undercover entries and flipped brokers pointed to a chain that reached past deck crews and into flag officers. Case files identified Admiral Ernesto Cedeno Tobar by role and reach, with 47 officers mapped beneath him by duty station and access. In that structure, traffickers bought protection like a menu item. 10% bought a simple escort, hulls nearby and radios silent. 15% added navigation data, waypoints, patrol gaps, radar schedules. 20% meant direct naval transport, bales aboard a state ship, deck logs scrubbed. 30% covered the hot runs, storm windows, contested waters, and last-minute diversions after tip-offs. That evidence forced a choice. Washington sent a formal note to Caracas that laid out the violations and warned of consequences, while prosecutors opened 31 sealed indictments in federal courts. The counts named narco-terrorism, transnational organized crime, conspiracy to traffic controlled substances, and money laundering. One package pushed extradition for Captain Ricardo Marquez. The diplomatic channel stayed open, but the legal track began moving freight trains of paper, photographs, and bank wires toward arraignments. Follow the pipeline, and the overdose math stops feeling abstract. Offshore transfer nodes sit just outside normal interdiction arcs, fishing motherships, flag trawlers, and go-fasts fitted with long-range bladders. Brokers coordinate handoffs in short radio bursts and one-time pads, then push product into coastal warehouses where bulk cocaine gets blended with synthetic enhancers to stretch margins and tweak effect. When purity spikes, a dose that used to deliver a short high slides into cardiac arrest. When additives like potent stimulants or adulterants wash in, the risk shifts from the distribution hub to the emergency room because the danger moves to the point of use. To constrain future naval collusion, agencies stacked evidence until it locked like teeth on a gear. High-resolution imagery established pattern of life, routes, timings, and hull positions. Intercepted comms captured coordination bursts tied to specific convoys. Forensic bail analysis mapped brick signatures, stamp marks, wrap types, chemical profiles. Across seizures from different ports, financial leads attached account numbers to officers, brokers, and shell firms that lined up with sailing calendars. The goal was simple: surround the enemy with facts so every future patrol ship that drifts near a convoy feels a legal wall closing. The public health shockwaves were blunt. Officials framed the 8 tons as 160,000 lives at risk if the chain ran clean. Miami logged a 300% spike in cocaine overdoses in early October 2025. Ambulance runs stacked and ICU beds tight. New York tracked a rise in teen meth-related fatalities tied to contamination and potency shifts. The line on the chart tilting up as new blends hit. These were not abstract numbers. They were the downstream of a sea lane protected for a fee. Debates about which country stamped the passport on a bale hid the lethal variables. Origin matters far less than what gets mixed in and how strong it lands. Purity, cuts, and synthetic boosters decide whether a party ends or a heart stops. That is where policy should look, because that is where users meet the risk. One case moment sharpened the link. Forensic signatures from seized bricks matched maritime corridors rather than farm regions. Packaging, solvent residues, and binding agents lined up with specific transfer routes and timing windows. That let prosecutors move beyond unknown sources and argue state-enabled logistics in court with maps, lab charts, and voice logs side by side. Why were PO-13 and PO-15 acting as escorts? Because a formalized system sold naval protection as a service tier. This was an institutional model, not a rogue crew, and it scaled like a business. The camera told the story at sea. The indictments, lab reports, and ER data tell what it costs at home. Now the question is, who still pays for protection when the docks go quiet and the sirens start?